On the last episode of Alpha, the Antonio story, Antonio was 16 and he had been at Brenda's for 3 years. After the excitement wore off, he realized that his new life was a bit uncomfortable. He was sleeping on the couch and all of his clothes were in a trash bag. But feeling that he had outgrown teen life, he didn't feel that he could go back to his mother. Antonio continues to make runs for Brenda, making sure to follow her rules down to the letter. On one such run, he encounters resistance from the boss's goons. He stands his ground. And in an interesting twist, he meets a girl that catches his attention. Peaches. And now, Chapter 8, All the Risks. Narrated by Shandora Warren. Music by Epidemic Sound. Everything moved really quickly after that point. I'm not talking about the situation between me and Peaches. That took a little more time. But everything else just kind of took off. There is one thing about being involved in the life. Everything is carefully monitored. That can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what you have going on. In my case, I guess it was a good thing. Well, I don't know. In the short version, I was loyal to Brenda. I did whatever she asked with no questions. I did pickups and drop-offs, sold her products if she wasn't around, and I never took anything from her. I was 16, but I was nothing to play around with. At that point, I was 6'2" and probably 200 pounds. I was an asset to Brenda, and I knew it. I'd often hear people joke about how that big boy ain't gonna let nothing happen to Brenda. I mean, nobody was really messing with Brenda before I came along. I'm not sure if that was because my father was around or because everybody knew that she was scoring from the boss. But things were changing. In the 3 years that I had been around, nearly everybody we knew had been robbed at least once. Neither Brenda nor I ever got touched. I knew I was a part of that equation. I never had to say a thing, but I was an intimidating figure. It didn't take much. However, it wasn't ever lost upon me that things weren't equaling out. I also realized that Brenda wasn't as well put together as I thought. Yeah, she gave me a place to stay, but that was about it. Every once in a while, she hit me with a couple of bucks, but I always felt as though I was giving it right back. It was nothing for Brenda to give me $50, then basically con me into spending it. She wouldn't come right out and say it. It would always get slipped in. I'd be on my way out, and right before I leave the apartment, Brenda would yell something like, "Hey, I need you to pick up a couple of things while you're out." It always came across as something that just popped into her mind. But then she'd pull out a list. A list that was already written out. Brenda never gave me any money for the things on the list. The general consensus seemed to be that I shouldn't mind putting out because I lived there. That was never stated, but implied. One might agree with that, but think about it. I was doing more running for Brenda than she was doing for herself. Shouldn't I have had something other than just a place to stay? And if Brenda wasn't getting money from me in that way, she'd get it through inaction. Sometimes she'd simply choose to not buy food. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Watch everybody starve? So if I had an extra dollar, it usually went into buying something that was needed at the apartment. Food, toiletries, cleaning supplies, etc. There wasn't ever any real appreciation on Brenda's behalf. More often than not, she'd say something like, "Oh, thanks, Tonio. I was going to pick that up later." It was the same thing every single time. At 16, I realized that my perception hadn't really been reality. I came to live with Brenda when I was 13. I thought she was making a lot of money. But once I came to understand the system a little, I realized that she was merely a point C. Without going too deeply into it, there was a bit of a business structure. The point A guys were the big guys. They distribute large quantities of drugs to a couple of guys under them. They were the point B guys. Then the point B guys would distribute quantities to several people who were at the bottom, the point C guys. The point C people stood on corners or sold small amounts to the crackheads in the neighborhood. The point A and the point B people never dealt with drug addicts. They sold to smaller drug dealers. Brenda was a point C. Any given day, people would show up to purchase $10 worth of crack. And like I said, she was at the bottom. When I showed up, she basically made me her errand boy. I was like a point C minus. By default, I was all the way at the bottom because I was basically selling drugs on the outside. If I had gotten caught, the drugs would always have been in my possession. The liability was mostly mine, but I wasn't getting any of the proceeds. After 3 years of living with Brenda, I could barely afford the occasional pair of sneakers. All the while, she was still pocketing the money that my mother sent for me. I'd find that out later. Needless to say, I was getting a bit frustrated. However, I felt that my options were limited. By that point, I had been out of my mother's house for 3 years. Going back wasn't an option. So I felt that I had to deal with Brenda, for the time being. So what changed the situation? Well, it was a regular day. As I often did, I went to pick up and drop off for Brenda. I entered the house expecting the short exchange that I always had with the boss. But that day, things went differently. I took the money out of my waistband, just as I always did. I didn't like to carry book bags like some of the other guys because they could easily get picked off. I handed it over to the boss and asked, what I always ask, you need to count it? He shook his head. Nah, he said, Brenda ain't gonna short me. That could have been the end of the conversation, but I decided to probe further. I asked, how you know I ain't gonna short Brenda? He laughed, then answered, 'cause you ain't. I laughed too. Nah, I ain't, I replied. And that's when the conversation took a turn. The boss asked how much Brenda was paying me. I could tell that he was assessing the situation. I obviously wasn't dressed like someone who was making a lot of money, or any amount of money. I didn't want to answer. For some reason, it felt like a betrayal to Brenda, even though she was obviously getting over on me. So I avoided having to say the words. I shook my head and he picked up on it. It's that bad? He asked. We both laughed. The boss asked how old I was. 16, I replied. He responded without ever missing a beat. He said, I don't know your story, but 16 is a tough age for a lot of boys. Add in the struggle, and it gets a whole lot worse. I've been watching you, and I like the way you carry yourself. You always make sure you're square with me, and you're not scared to stand up for yourself, even against my goons. That's admirable. What you think about coming to work for me? You sell what I give you, give me my cut, and the rest is yours. It's time for you to make some moves. I took a moment to ponder his proposition. It was basically the equivalent of moving from Brenda's point C minus to an actual point C. I couldn't lie. Having money in my pocket was intriguing to me. I knew Brenda was going to hit me for whatever she wanted, but I'd still be better off than having her control what she gave me and what she took out of it. That thought took me all the way to the main point. Brenda. That was the main point. I learned that my arrangement with Brenda had worked because I was under her thumb. She would never tolerate me doing my own thing under her roof. The boss had a solution. So leave. It seems so simple in theory. Just leave. Yeah. Where am I going to go? I asked. That answer was simple too. I got an extra room. You can stay here. I was fully on board with moving in with the boss. At that point, I didn't feel that I had anything to lose. I was dead broke, sleeping on Brenda's couch, and it didn't seem that things were going to get better. Even still, I felt indebted to Brenda. She had taken me in when she had no responsibility to do so. She wasn't my mother. She simply had children by my father. Even before my father passed, Brenda took me in on that first day. My mother was upset that I had gotten into trouble at school, so she dropped me off with her. No one would have blamed Brenda if she had dropped me right back off, but she didn't. She accepted me in and started the process of integrating me into her life and my sister's lives. And because of that, I felt that I should at least give her a chance to fix things. I left the boss that day, telling him that I'd have to talk to Brenda about it. I didn't tell him, but I had a bit of an angle that I wanted to work. Yes, leaving Brenda's and having my own space sounded good, but I also felt guilty about leaving abruptly. Brenda hadn't been alone for a while, and I was worried that some of the guys might try her if I wasn't around. For that reason alone, a part of me felt that I should stick it out, but I knew something needed to change. I got back with the package that I had just picked up from the boss. Brenda immediately started breaking everything down into smaller quantities. I took a deep breath, then went right in. Brenda, I want to talk to you about something. She never looked up. So talk, she said. I knew what I wanted to convey, but the words didn't flow as naturally as I thought they would. However, we had arrived at the point of no return, so I just spat it out. I need some money in my pocket, so you gotta start paying me. I understand if you can't do that, but if not, I gotta work on my own. For the first time, Brenda glanced up. Pay you? She exclaimed. I pay you when you have a place to lay your head, food to eat, and a TV to watch some stupid nature shows on. Work on your own? Where you gonna do that at? You think you're gonna live in my house for free and take out of my pocket? You think I'm gonna share my clients with you? I had no desire to get over on Brenda. I only presented the idea of getting paid to see if she would give me a reason to stay. Nah, I said. I ain't trying to do either of those things. I think I'm gonna step out on my own. I'm gonna go work with the boss. I bet you won't, exclaimed Brenda. Stay right here. I'll be back. I had no idea what came out of that conversation with the boss. What I do know is Brenda didn't come back the same way she left. When she returned, she wanted to have a conversation. Not a conversation that she dominated. She actually wanted to talk to me. Let's talk, said Brenda. When important things are on the line, you got to put your pride aside and be honest. I'm willing to do that right now. I haven't always been honest or even fair with you. You've done everything that I've asked, and you've deserved far more than I've given you. I let you do the running, and I've kept most of the money for myself. Before you came to live here, your mother and I made an arrangement. She gives me money for you every week. I've been using the money in any way that I need it. I'm being honest about these things because I never want you to think that it was meant to hurt you. I struggle every single day, and I do whatever I can to lighten that load. Even still, I wouldn't ever hurt you. I do the best for you in the same way that I do for my girls, but that's all I got. I can't pay you. I can love you and be here for you. I can give you a place to stay. I'll do those things to the day that I die, but that's where the difference lies. The boss don't care about nobody but himself. He ain't gonna love and care for you or anybody else. You're a way for him to make money, and that's it. When you can't do that no more, you won't even exist to him. It's bigger than that, though. They're into all kinds of mess around there. It ain't no place for a 16-year-old. I ain't been the best example, but trust me when I tell you that you don't want to get into all that. Tonio, you got a choice to make. I can't tell you what to do, but if you get tangled up in that mess over there, you can't come back here. Admittedly, I wasn't ever keen on taking warnings very seriously, and when I thought about it, Brenda's warning seemed a bit out of place, so I had to tell her. It's funny how it's no place for me to be now, but you had no problem sending me there every week to either pick up drugs or to drop off money. Now that you'll have to do your own work, your concern kicks in? And you've been letting me slim it out while Ma was giving me money? Yeah, I think I'll take my chances on my own. Don't worry, I won't be back. All right, said Brenda. Don't say I ain't warned you. I won't, I snapped. Admittedly, I was a bit bothered by the way it all went down. I didn't expect it to happen that way. Even though I was irritated by Brenda and intrigued by the idea of making my own money, the loyal part of me was hoping that we could work something out. But the words had been spoken, and we couldn't take them back. I gathered the 2 trash bags that contained my belongings and headed over to the boss's place.